Hello and welcome to Transforming Worlds. In this episode, we speak to Sonia Manchanda. She's the founding partner at Spread Design and Innovation and an elected board member at the World Design Organization. Advisor to multiple universities, her work is at the intersections of academia and practice and has been awarded globally, featured in several books by leading international authors. Two key ideas drive Sonia's work: design as a way of transitioning from dissonance to design sense, and imagination design. Sonia is the creator of the Design Barn, India's first independent design center, a curator of the Design Open, and the conscious caretaker of the Design Farm in Bangalore, India, with deep interest in imaginative possibilities around cultures, nature, and futures. Sonia and her team have been working closely for over 2 decades with maverick leaders in industry and governance to create the next generation of brands and experience catalyzing change. Today we speak about the boundarylessness of imagination, possibilities, and how design can help us transform worlds. Tune in. Welcome, Sonia. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Lovely weather here, and lots of work as usual, but it's nice to find the time to talk to you.
Yes, thank you so much. And tuning in from Bangalore, indeed, with beautiful weather. So tell us about yourself and what's a specific transformation you're undertaking in your work these days?
So in all of my work, I think right now, and I think over the last couple of months, I've been doing this, going to various design schools, going to various spaces, and talking about, and very visually talking about this. So my visual metaphor is this white elephant. And I was teased about the Design Barn, which has now become a very popular space to define the fact that design can do very big things. I was teased that it's going to be a white elephant. I mean, who's going to come here, right? So I use the metaphor of the white elephant, but I give it wings. Okay. And the white elephant with wings, which is flying and gently floating in the air, to me is who we need to be as designers, where it's called the Airavat. There is a mythical story about the elephant as well. So it's the idea that, the fact that as designers, we're compassionate, we're confident, we are curious, and we have the courage to challenge the status quo. We have the courage to ask some very simple, obvious questions. And that makes us big and strong like the elephant. Our capacity to actually create complex scenarios, which is just a basic human capacity, but we seem to be in a hurry and we seem to want to lose it as human beings. I mean, we survived in the wild because of that capacity to create scenarios. That capacity to create scenarios gives us wings. And all of the new technology, rather than fearing it, how exciting it is that, you can actually get all the answers you want. Whatever's in your imagination, you can put it out there. And I feel that designers sometimes self-limit because they sit in front of all of this software and they self-limit themselves. They need a brief. They say rude things about clients. All of that, all of that because you are self-limiting. But actually, with all of that technology, it's the wind beneath your wings. What you can do, that curiosity that you had, you can bring it alive. You can imagine all these scenarios. You can take other people along on your back into a whole different realms. Like the Santiago theory of cognition. I love the fact that, it talks about bringing forth the world. When we design, when we create, we bring forth the world. There was a way that we were, and there was a way that we can be. So I truly believe that we need to, take away the constraints. That technology anyway has taken away the constraints. Can you imagine all of human intelligence is out there with AI? And you can tap into it at any point in time. Now what do? Let your talent come out, just create. So for me, the big thing now, and that I'm really fascinated by, is this whole idea of imagination design. How far can you push it? There are so many things that need change. So, and that is the starting point where to be able to make sense wherever there is dissonance. In my city, Bangalore, for instance, the rate of growth is so crazy that we have a growth crisis. We are growing so fast that any infrastructure you create can't keep up. So there is perpetually this dissonance, you know, and design maybe is the way to go from dissonance to be able to sort of untangle that, and make a new order and make sense of things. But without imagination, that's not possible. You'll just get overwhelmed. And come to my country, you'll get completely overwhelmed. Chaos, the chaos that we have at all points in time. And yet somehow things move. That's
Yes.
that's when people come to our country, they say, I mean, there's chaos everywhere. But somehow things are moving and somehow it's beautiful. And it takes, and all the world needs is a little bit of imagination, I feel.
Wow. What an introduction, Sonia. I mean, I feel so inspired by what you're saying. And I'm intrigued as well because you talk about the wings of the white elephant as a symbol for being more open-minded, imaginative, perhaps lighter as designers. What makes us heavy, though?
Uh, what makes us heavy is our capacity to get confused.
Mm.
That's what I said, it's self-limitation. If we know how to take along multiple stakeholders, we know how to actually sort of reframe a problem as an opportunity. We know how to flip things around, but somewhere when we get overwhelmed, then we lose that capacity to be able to make sense.
Mm.
And that's when we need to be even more open. We need to sort of immerse deeper. And so basically, I've actually over time created a path, which we call the design sense path. You know,
Yes.
it's the path is actually designed to actually take you from a place of authentic intent. And I think that is the biggest stumbling block, not just for designers, it's for leaders, for everyone. When you are actually looking at a problem, you are looking at the human condition. Maybe you are observing, but you're still not reaching a point of synthesis of being able to churn and get to the key insight.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes leaders are struggling with multiple options and ideas that they can invest in and put their energies into, you know, but they haven't done this immersion. The feel, we talk about design thinking, but where's the feeling? The minute you can feel for things, somehow all the pathways open up.
Yes. You
Yeah.
speak to
So
my heart.
you go from an immersion, you deep dive in, and you come out, changed. You come out changed. You can now reframe a problem as an opportunity. You have an insight. You can convert it into an idea, shape it into a system, think of what you should do as a prototype, and create the narrative around it. So you can take more people along on your back into that next realm.
Yeah. So take us through your journey. So you have this amazing place, which is the design barn, which, as you said, people warned you this was going to be a white elephant, and you pursued it anyway. Nowadays, it's an alchemical gathering place of people who are in this search that you've just described. But you said first you have to go through the insight so that then you can make sense of the idea. What was the insight for you going into the design barn? What led you there?
So my previous organization was a space where I cleared out a little bit of space to say we need to bring design to the center.
Mm.
Earlier you were speaking about Europe and the way we look at design as form, but actually design has to be seen as meaning. Design has to be seen as policy. Design has to be seen as systems. you know so how can you create a space where you can bring everyone together? And my journey was with the Dreamin project, where we looked at how design should start from people's dreams, because when it starts from people and it's an inside out process, then we are not looking top down. And looking at their needs and making products smaller, ensuring that everybody gets those products which we think they need, but maybe they don't. Maybe they should focus on their dreams and invest in their dreams and grow from there, which is what's happening today with creators, influencers. They're shaping things in their own vision. So the Dreamin project really allowed Carlos Teixeira and myself to bring together people who were in policy, in governance, in the funding space, corporate leaders, students, researchers, academicians, all together on one platform to have a conversation. Those conversations are important because it's through those conversations. Tim Ingold talks about meshworks. It's when we come together that something new gets created, a new weave of life gets created.
Yes.
So we were able to do that, and we were able to create a platform to do that. And then we moved away from there for whatever reason to create Spread 10 years ago. And we did have a studio. And so that's part of my journey. We had about 2 decades ago taken a space outside of the city. So one is projects, and then there are life plans. So this was our life plan to actually farm, grow trees, which maybe the next generation will benefit from. Little did we know that we will enjoy those. 20 years hence, we'll still be around, and we're going to enjoy the mangoes and the coconuts and all of them, the pepper and all of that. So we had already begun this work. So we had that space. So, and that was designed to be a space where you can go away and develop ideas,
Yes.
So it's got that space. It's like an ashram. The design of the space is based on old courtyard houses. That was great. We needed that. But I miss this whole idea of the platform, of the space in the center that everyone can congregate at, where the weaves can intersect, the threads can intersect. So I looked at how can I frugally create such a place. So, and I had previously seen certain places like, say, the California College of Arts, other places which had been repurposed. So a bus shed became an art school, etc. But I did not have anything here to repurpose. I said, why don't I build a shed, and create a space that kind of challenges your intellect. It says design can be frugal, design can be beautiful. And the design started from, like, at one level, it's a shed. At another level, my most important decision was the color of the floor. It's the color of beach sand. And it's a seamless floor. So when you come in here, you just walk. You want to take your shoes off. Everybody wants to kick off their shoes. And when you kick off your shoes, your mind opens up. So it's like a lab. It can be anything. Interestingly, when my colleagues from the World Design Organization came to visit here, before I became a member of the board, somebody said, so is this an education space? Is this a studio? I mean, like, is it a design practice? Or is this an event space, like a place for evangelization? So I said, it's all of it, because in my country, we don't have those spaces. We don't have a progressive design council. We don't have a lot of that. So what do you do in that case? You just make it happen.
Yes.
So the design barn is the space which is a lab. You move with the times. You can change the shape of things with the times. You embrace new technologies. You embrace new ways of thinking. You bring everything together. And then Design Open is a place to decode emergence. You decode emergence, you sense the shifts. You're talking about change as it happens, not after the fact. And everybody comes here, talks about what they're doing, learn from each other, and go back changed. Go back, in your words, transformed.
Yes. But it is that, it's quite interesting. I mean, the process that you've described, and I'm very, very lucky, and I have the immense pleasure of knowing you for a very, very long time. So back from the Dreaming Project, indeed, when you were at Idiom, and where you were trying to help the emergence of what was India for India. instead of
Yes.
saying, let's go and copy ideas somewhere, let it emerge from here, which then led to spread, which is now giving this immense capacity and wisdom to open up through the design barn to people globally. I mean, you've been featured in my book and in many other books as well because of that work that you do. But I'm intrigued about what you said about people, like they visit you from the World Design Organization, but many designers as well have a need to define what it is. And it seems to me that that's a human capacity. It's not just designers that do that. I mean, we do
Right.
like form. Well, I like transform, like you do. I like to look at the emergence and the new form that is becoming, but we still have this need to label, to define, to put in place so that we can relate to things. What's happening there? Because it seems that you really work with this discomfort in your everyday.
Um, I love what you're saying because, and that's all we're talking about nowadays, um, because I love labels. That's what changes the world. Just ideas.
Yes.
Okay. And my biggest inspiration is Mahatma Gandhi, who used labels to change the world.
Yes.
He talked about Swaraj, which means we govern ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, you know what? It's not Swaraj really unless it's Purna Swaraj. Everybody, even if you're a minority, you get to govern yourself. And he called, now that's a reframe. The people who clean the streets and the gutters and all of that, um, they are considered untouchables. Okay.
Yes.
So how do I reframe that? Because they're doing God's work, he called them Harijan. It's also a beautiful word, even if it's like avatar. It's just a nice word, even if we did not know the language. It's
Mm-hmm.
good. It's He's a good designer,
Yes.
And that Harijan means they're God's people, so you have to respect them. So it's a reframe. And we do this in our work, that we take. So when you come in here, you say, okay, design is not something boutique, it's something big, but I can't put my finger on it. Okay. So I start asking you, so what can we do? Oh, you do brand, you look at experiences. Um, and then you open up a little bit more and you start talking about what's bothering you or where your intuition had led you. Design doesn't always start from a problem. It starts from an observation, an intuition, something that you're feeling I can shape here. And
Yes.
then we hop on board as partners and we help give a form to that idea.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know and that is so then of course brand follows, experience follows. The way our practice at Spread is designed is that we have folks working on strategy and research and doing deep work there. We have our own beautiful formats and frameworks there. We have folks working on design, brand, and experience, another team working on digital. We have highly qualified filmmakers, and we've self-invested in film. So are we a design firm? I don't know. I really don't know what we are, you
Yeah.
know, but we are an engine to be able to create these imagination properties. And we say design, build, and spread bold ideas.
Yeah.
So, and it starts from the label. It starts from how do you define this? How do you put a new idea out there that tickles people's imagination, and is infectious? It gets them interested. And then we create the systems to make that idea omniscient. And then the world has shifted. And before people know it, the change has already taken place.
Yeah.
So,
So there's huge things to unpack in there because I think that's in a way from a studio perspective, like designers who work in a context of shaping things, this idea of omniscience is like super attractive. Like if my idea could spread everywhere, but it seems to me that what you are talking about with the omniscience is much more about the virality of an idea, the contagious effect of this imagination you're talking about, this design sense that says, oh, but this could also be this, or it could also be that, or it might help me with XYZ. And it's like it's an unpacking of what imagination does to help carry the design forward. that is a hard thing to do, especially because of the need to define. And I think that going to the examples you gave and the labels, what defines us, to keep defining, what defines us as designers is that we see labels as a temporary thing. It's not definite, it's not final, it's just what helps us in the moment to frame and then be able to reframe from there and continue to evolve through our imagination as to what might be. But most clients will be very uncomfortable with this idea because what are we doing things for if they're just going to be in transition? How do you deal with that? How do you explain to clients that this is a necessary step for imagination to unfold?
Oh, okay. See, we've always understood this idea of the intellectual property. It's creation of the mind. Okay. And it's very simple. What an imagination, we call it an imagination property. An imagination property, like I said, is creating an idea, okay, that deserves to be spread, that helps create the change that you want to see, or bring forth a new world, a new way of thinking in the world. And when you put that forth, and that is a logic you give, that this is the change that we want. So you've actually predetermined the impact. So, like I said, from authentic intent to creative impact.
Mm-hmm.
Could I use an example to explain this? Would you think that would help?
Yeah, I think it's helpful. I mean, obviously, you're preaching to the converted, but I think this is for our audience where there are many young designers and young creatives who are feeling this kind of creative impulse to bring things forth, as you say, but that feel the impediment of the cultural narratives of doing the same as everyone else, of going with the default, going with normality. And this can be very confining. So on the one hand, as designers, we are liberators, but on the other hand, we're immersed in culture that tries to confine and determine and define things beforehand instead of being more allowing for these imagination properties. So it would be helpful to show how you've gone through that process.
So, at one level, when you talked about designers feeling confined, again, I'm going back to that the fact that, I truly believe, and I have this debate with my husband, who's from the management side of things, that if you take the strategic being, okay, somebody who can think strategically,
Yeah.
maybe a management person, a bureaucrat, or whatever, and you try to make them creative, and I say try, when you teach them design thinking, etc., you will push for a change in the way they maybe open up to things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe their mind opens up a little bit. Okay. However, when you take the person who's already creative, okay, creative, compassionate, very authentic in their being,
Mm-hmm.
poetic, finds beauty in everything, is positive about things. And now you teach them to be more articulate, more confident, bolder in expressing their idea, in being able to even sell their idea.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a good idea, but how, and to create the systems to take it forward. I think the future is there. And I truly believe the future is there, that, the creatives have to become more strategic, and
Yes.
the strategists have to be more creative. And you can solve some of the most complex problems when you do that. So, as I mentioned, I'll take you through an example. So,
Yes.
since we spoke about this earlier, but the millets example. So, we had this Karnataka agriculture minister working on the problem of farmer suicides. So every alternate year almost is a drought year in Karnataka, and the subsistence farmers who have very tiny land holdings,
Yes.
and therefore cannot grow anything much, cannot afford the seeds or the fertilizers, etc., etc. He proposed to them that they grow millets and they go organic. And they took his advice, they did that. 4 years hence, when there was a first crop, Good intentions, he had good intentions. But what he had not thought through was, where's the market? Who knows about millets? Who gives a dang about millets? Nobody does. Nobody even knows what it is, you know? Uh, and um, and that's when he was struggling. Should I work with an advertising agency? Do I do a campaign? I have a trade fair. It's not a consumer fair coming up, and the big retailers have zero interest in participating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's National Millets and Organics Trade Fair. So that's when he somebody said, these guys think nicely. Not that you need design, but I like the way these people think, and maybe you should talk to them.
Yes.
So we met him, and we realized that something needed to be done. We had 10 days to go, and we had a big fair coming up. So there was a bunch of things that we did, but the big reframe there was that, if I tell you, buy millets because farmers are dying, you'll be kind and you'll buy them once. Okay. But you want to stay away from the negative.
Mm-hmm.
But if I tell you that this is next gen smart food, like superfoods, new category, next gen smart food, which is good for your health, it's good for the planet. So you're doing something big here. And by the way, it's also good for the farmer.
Yes.
And there's this new food that's hit the market. It's a new food solution for the world. Then you want to know about it.
Yes.
And then, of course, there's a whole system we created: communication campaigns, training the farmers, creating what we call food stamps about the benefits of millets. So the it becomes omniscient. It
Mm.
gets under the skin. Before you know it, you can spout things about millets. You can say, they're naturally organic, they are gluten free, XYZ. We had about 100 food stamps put out, which was just information nuggets.
Yeah.
And the fair was a huge success. Going forward, we had an international organics and millets trade fair, another international organics and millets trade fair. Again, we had no idea, who do we invite for this. There are no associations around this. So we made a film where we took the drone across millet fields, showed these beautiful farmers, took you into that world, and said, and we made the minister talk, and we and he's very smart, and we talked about um, where the world of millets and organics will converge. At this moment, we did not know who the hell was coming, but we put it out there because whatever world there is, we wanted it to converge here. So we created this upswing and this excitement, and sure enough, it was another success with great orders. Um, and a lot of visual ideas. So I would not de-link ever the craft of design from the thought of design. Okay.
I
So the
love that.
craft in here was the fact that we actually got somebody who was a bouquet designer, a florist, and she made a bouquet with millets. Now you can imagine this would last a day. So every time she made it, when somebody was coming, some people were landing from different countries, we shot a picture of them holding the millet bouquet. Okay, to show that for the one quinoa that the world has, we have 9 varieties of millets, you know, and there's a wealth here, you know, and so we were like literally making a bouquet every day, taking all these pictures. What has happened subsequently is that the UN declared 2023 as the year of millets, and nobody else was working on this. This was only Karnataka. Because that happened, our prime minister picked it up. And he said that India is going to lead in millet cultivation. And his picture, when he talks about that, is of course a millet bouquet with 10 varieties of millet,
Yes.
because it's infectious. We are not
Right.
involved. I feel even more proud that we are not involved, you
Yes.
know. And it talks about and new food solutions for the world. Today, the demand for millets far outstrips the supply. I love to share this with people and ask them, does anybody know what's millets? And there was a time when there would be no hands raised. Today, all hands are raised. Everybody knows what are millets. I mean, even somebody from America sent me how McDonald's has a millet burger. It's like,
Then you've made it. No,
now I made it.
but
Now
I
we
think
made it.
I
Yeah,
think there's
no.
something really interesting here because we come from a previous century where you and I were both born, where the endeavor to get things to spread was a spin doctor, a PR campaign, the art of persuasion. And I think we are coming into a new way of doing things, which is much more creative, as designers do, about, hey, here's something, try it out. What do you think about this? What do you make of this? And this open endedness, this incompleteness, a term that was coined back in the day by one of my favorite designers, Bruce Mao, who talks about the incomplete manifesto. Just leave a little bit of the door or the window open for that connection that is going to allow the message to take the right tone, the right form, the right expression, and be participating of that to ensure the consistency. But things actually spread because we don't design them as a final piece of design, as a final artifact, as a final, dot at the end of a sentence and close it. But it's the ability to open that allows it to grow organically through the people. And this requires trust because you don't know what people are going to say. You involve the prime minister, and there's a camera in front of someone's face, and you don't know what's going to happen. But by allowing it to happen, we can then celebrate the moments in which it's understood, in which it's taken in the right context, in which it is put to use to achieve a win-win-win-win, right? You weren't talking about the farmers, but it was about the farmers and their thrivability, their prosperity, their future. And you got the result in a way that was not directive and therefore lasts much, much, much longer. But it's a hard thing to do because it does require trust. What inspires you when you work in such a project to kind of keep trying things out, keep evolving the ideas so that it may continue to have this momentum?
Um, Possibility. Just possibility. There's so much possible. I mean, look at the change we have seen in our lifetimes. If that does not inspire us, how things change, how it's possible to change things. So the sheer possibility. And I think somewhere there, um, you know, um, going back home to a place where there are trees and there are leaves and there are shadows and there's light, you're reminded every day that it's a new day. So, what inspires me, I think, more than anything else, is nature. Because nature suggests to you every day that there are possibilities. Nature changes you every day. People talk about all this forest bathing, etc., labels, all these labels, but it's amazing. I step out and, and I go, oh, it's just so beautiful. The shadows, the light, it's so different every day. So we forget that sometimes. We get stuck, we get stuck ourselves, you know. And if you keep looking forward and you keep seeing everything as a way to sort of as a tool, AI is another tool, you know, another instrument to create a new and better world. I think there's a lot possible. So, for instance, for the next generation, today with technology being able to do so much,
Mm-hmm.
what do they have to do? They have to just chase their talent. I took my daughter, who's a musician, to an Ed Sheeran concert because I really admire that guy's gumption. The fact that he created this one tune, which I personally heard in a farm in Portugal where they don't even speak English, and in a mall in India where they don't speak English either. You know, so he's got the pulse of the world in his hands. And he said, I just go out there. And in his documentary, you'll see he talks about the fact that, I go out because of the way I look. I don't look like a rock star. So
No.
while everyone else would perform only over weekends, I would try and perform every day because the possibility is there. It's out for you to go out and get it. And when he came here to Bangalore and performed, there were 26,000 people in the concert, and there was one man on stage. I mean, it's
Well, of course,
amazing.
he's not a one-man show. Let's credit the people
Doesn't
who
matter.
are
Doesn't
around him and
matter.
supporting
Doesn't
it.
matter.
So,
It takes guts. It takes guts.
of course, he's the initiator of that, and I think that that's that initiative,
That
that
itself is a
chasing the
possibility.
talent.
That itself is a possibility. He's putting out. He's telling my daughter and other people like that you can go up on stage alone. I know
Yes.
there may be 100 people behind him,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but pure optics of that.
Of course. And it's because I think that that's also what we're coming to understand kind of as a part of this zeitgeist, part of this century, is that what makes a leader is not leadership. What makes a leader is the followers. It's the capacity to inspire. It's the capacity to spread, as you preach as well, the capacity to spread these ideas, to spread this possibility. That's really what it takes. So if we were to fast forward, say, maybe 10 years, maybe 50 years, way into the future, how would next generations look at these topics, do you think?
I think that the next generation is, because I have a teenager at home, I know they're very positive
Yes.
and they're very confident. And because information is free and available, it's ubiquitous, you can't really fool them. So I think the time of all these crazy leaders out there uh, is going to have to end soon because
Yes.
it's becoming obvious that they don't know what they're talking about. They are actually more fragile than the rest of us.
Hmm.
And I think the next generation, as long as it builds on its own talent and its capacities, is going to be very resilient. And it's going to be about talent. It's going to be totally about their own individual talent to cut out the noise that there is in our world. I'm seeing more of them, more and more of them, and more so in the future. They will focus on their talent. They will focus on their creativity and their output.
Yes.
And that output, given all of the new technology, they will be able to create immersive experiences. They will be able to redesign new cities. Newer leaders will say, okay, fine, we messed up this city. Let me make a larger version of this city. There's a Bangalore, but let's make a greater Bangalore and let that city be something else. I don't know where the place is, but Dubai, for instance, talks about we will forest all of Dubai. I don't know. But newer cities, at least they will think about actually making it possible because after a point, they don't, I mean, nobody wants to do something, say something laughable,
No,
right?
of course. It's just my reaction was trying to imagine this. It's
Yeah.
and again, it connects us to
Somewhere the intention is there. The intention is developing.
right.
Climate change is showing us, you know, um, uh, the earth is the newer view is that nature, rivers, our mountains, they're all our ancestors. And we had forgotten that we are nature. So today people are talking about seven generation thinking, intergenerational kind of ideas and systems, thinking forward seven generations. That's what we need to do, and we are realizing that. So
Mhm.
I see it as us having no other choice but to be positive.
Of course,
So
because
some
also
people are born positive, but then I think we will have no other choice but to think in that way because we are seeing um, uh, the fault there is in not thinking in that way.
of course, and understanding our role as ancestors as well. So on the one hand, looking at the cycle of life as the ancestry of nature, but also our role to those generations down the road that we're talking about in a world that is much more of a possibilitarian world as you're proposing. And I would love that.
So to add to your
Yes.
possibilitarian world, I want to add another idea, which is the idea of the, I'm going to call it the, in India, there's this concept of, Om, right? Om, the sound,
Yes.
okay. Hum, hum is us. Okay, so there's the branding of a business school that I had worked on, and we had said it was Wellinger Education, so I called it B School. And the idea was that it's not just a B school, it's a V school. It's about society, community, etc., etc. And they're doing very well. But the idea of the V comes from a far more profound idea of the hum. Hum is us in the larger
Yes.
us. Us is nature, us is you and me, us is all of us is the the pluriverse, all of the possibilities in the pluriverse, where it's not one narrative, one argument. Um, Arturo Escobar talks about desonar, the idea
Yes. Oh,
of
yes. Yes.
working with the local construct, letting the ideas emerge from the ground. Even in India, at the grassroots level, there is just so much innovation. Everybody has an idea. Okay, and anybody will tell you that there is grassroots innovation. It's there because they're connected to the ground. In Hindi, we say "Zameen se jude hue." You're connected to the ground, and from there the ideas emerge.
Yes.
So there's another that he talks about is taking that and then dreaming and designing with the community. Collectively, we dream and we design and we create something. So for me, that whole idea, I would summarize as, I'm calling it imagination. So it's human imagination. It's also hum, which is a more profound idea. The hum is the us together, collective, the collective, which includes nature.
I think you just
And
coined a term right there, Sonia. Again, I mean, you've done it again. You've done it before, and you've done it again. Imagination. So our uniquely human capacity to imagine. And on this podcast, we love Arturo Escobar. He's been quoted several times, and thanks for
yes,
reminding me of that because we had talked about it in our conversation before the episode about the pluriversality of things. And I'm by far, for me, India is very exotic because of my Latin American roots and sort of my European locality, if you were. But I do practice yoga and I do practice breathing. And one of the things that we learn is hum and sa, so hamsa. And hum as the everything of the pluriverse and sa as our role in it to make things happen, which I think you've brought together beautifully in this idea of imagination. Which brings me to the last question of the episode, and that's what will be our next question? Because as the future unfolds before us, we don't have answers. We naturally have questions. What is your next question?
what is my next question? A question that I have been grappling with is how do we get people, how do we actually tap into human dreams and help fulfill them? So, this human imagination, the capacity to dream is there within each one of us. And somewhere there, circumstances squelch that, and we crush the dreams. So, how do we take that capacity that each one of us has, to dream? Because even education limits you, it binds you, it says you need to learn this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And through education, we tell you that you have to conform, 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 conform. But what about me and my capacity to create, create, create? So how do we tap into individual capacities at the scale of one? So we're talking about all of humanity. We're talking of nature. We're talking of us being a part of nature, us being nature. But that one person and their capacity to dream and create from there, and make a better world. Imagine if we could do something to empower each person to do that. I think if we could figure that out, the world would be a better place. Because even if you and I, or people who are infinitely creative, come up with something, the world just challenges it because it doesn't get it.
Don't we know?
So much energy trying to bring alive things, paint a picture for people, and somewhere I think today we are seeking.
Yes.
Fandom is a thing, people are seeking. People have become seekers. They're going for these experiences. Everybody wants to go to the Mahakumbh. Okay, but they're going there because everybody else is going there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, come back, come back, come back. Let's see, what do you actually want? Where do you want to go?
Yes.
Who do you want to become? Who do you want to be? How, in what way will you add to this world? Like that beautiful tree standing there and fruiting away. How do we wake you up and get you to start dreaming? So I think that for me is like this question that keeps bothering me.
Well, I'm glad it is, because I'm sure you're going to come up with some amazing answers for that, as you've always done. You're an incredible inspiration, at least to me, and I hope through this episode to our listeners as well.
I just do my work, and from the work, if there are ideas that emerge, well and good.
Yeah. Yeah. So where can people find your work? We're going to add that to the show notes. So
okay. My work at Spread would be at spread.design, the website. I'm there on LinkedIn, where I'm constantly in conversation with everybody I know. I'm also part of the World Design Organization, where the idea to be there is to see how can we drive change at the scale of world. So at the scale of one, at the scale of world, both are important. So how do we do that? So that is wdo.org.
yes.
So these are the places, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, it's been an immense pleasure, as I predicted it would be. I always learn from you, so that's very humbling and very wonderful. Thanks for tickling my imagination and that of everyone else tuning in. And thanks for being you, Sonia. You're wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you do. You're always coming up with these amazing ideas. Your book and now this podcast, and I'm sure it's going to go places. All the best.
Thank you.